Hello and welcome to the build video of the conservatory cave tank. If you want to see the video of the building of the cave, which is made out of lava rock, then click on the link in the top right hand corner. Just using some expanding foam here to fill in the gaps around the cave that I made. Pulling away some of that excess once it's set to ensure that it has a more natural appearance. This takes a little while to do because the foam's pretty solid, but as you can see, it made a nice mini cave at the back which will be quite useful for the fish to hide. So I wanted to give this appearance of a little bit of land that had kind of fallen away from the rocks, so I put some silicone on top of the expanding foam and just covered it with more lava rock. And then filled in some of the gaps with some crushed lava rock that was taken from the breaking of the larger pieces. And the same down in this bottom corner where there's some exposed foam. As you can see, there's some polystyrene under the cave because it's quite weighty with all of the lava rock. So this is some NutriBase, which is a mix of lava rock, sand and gravel and nutrients. It's a good base with some beneficial bacteria in it. So a good portion of this is going on the bottom, which is where a lot of the stem plants will go. This will help to have a good growing environment, particularly because I wanted to get some carpeting plants down the bottom here and wanted to ensure that they had enough nutrients to actually carpet. Then some aqua soil on the top. This is also on top of some used mixed sand and aqua soil that I had from a previous scape. And then on top of that, some crushed nutrient tablets, which will just give the stem plants a bit of a boost. So there's a little bit in the cave section as well, because I'm wanting to put some plants in there that don't mind not having so much light, but a good scattering over the top of that. And then some basic gravel to cap it all off and keep it contained. And at this point I wanted a few rocks in there to look as if boulders had fallen off the cliff and to just give a little bit interest down the bottom. And on top of that I decided to use black sand as a decorative sand this time. So this sand is quite wet, it needs a significant amount of washing prior to putting in the tank because it's very dusty and comes out with a lot of black water. So this was damp, so a little bit harder to place into the scape, but it was pretty easily dealt with. And so now getting some plants in, we've got a mix of epiphytes and stems in this. So these are nice large clumps of Anubias that I've got from a previous scape, which I'm reusing here. Just tucking them into the rocks. And a pair of Bucepalandra attached to some rocks that just sit there to give a bit more interest in terms of leaf shape. And beneath the cave I wanted to put some plants, so these are Cryptocoryne varieties. These don't particularly need high levels of light, so they'll do quite well in the cave environment. There is a nice hole in the top to get the light in, so they should do well enough. And in addition to the two larger crypts, we've got some Cryptocoryne Peachy Pink, which has slightly pinker leaves. So as this is a small in vitro version, I'm just going to scatter it along the bottom beneath the cave's light hole. And this is a variegated style of Anubias, which is a special little variety that I thought it would be quite nice amongst all the plain greens, so we'll tuck that in a nice prominent position. And up on the top, this is Lilaeopsis brasiliensis. I wanted it to feel like a kind of grassy meadow environment that has got this hole down into a cave. So putting the longer Lilaeopsis towards the back by the tree stump. And then this is an Anubias from the previous tank. It's got a bit of algae on it, so I'm not sure how well it will do. And as a carpeting plant, we're using some Monte CARLO. So while this is quite a shallow bed, we did make sure that there were some nutrients through the NutriBase and the nutrient tablets. So hopefully this should carpet around the whole of the edge. We use this as the main carpeting plant, but we'll put some other little plants in there for some variety, and it should hopefully look like a grassy meadow. Just a little bit more Lilaeopsis towards the front of that to cover some of the gaps. So this is Eriocaulon. This is another grass type plant that grows up spindles with little flowers on top of them, so I thought this would be a nice change. Just peeking out in front of the Lilaeopsis and behind the Monte CARLO. So popping in another tree stump. As mentioned, I want it to feel a little bit like this is the edge of a cliff, and the roots from this little bit of wood actually does quite nicely at moving into the negative space that's to the right hand side of the cliff. Just adds a little bit more interest. So sticking that in with some super glue and just hiding some of the super glue points with some sand. So this is another crypt parva. So it's a very small crypt, it doesn't really grow very tall at all. So that adds some interest in between Monte Christo, Monte CARLO. I can't remember what it is, I keep seeing both, never mind. I think anybody who knows plants knows what I mean, but I'll try and put up the real description in. So this is Bucepalandra Sintang, and we're going to pop this into the wood to just look like it's got some leaves on it. And in addition, this is another smaller Bucepalandra with some darker leaves that I took from one of my other tanks. So this is a Hydrocotyl lucicephala, I think, which is like a large variety of the Hydrocotyl, and it should hopefully grow up and trail over the top of the cave. And this, I believe, is a Pogostemon erectus. Again, it's come from another tank. You can see by the long roots growing out from the side of the plant, it's well established, so this should do well in this back corner and give us some height there. This is Hygrophila rosae australis. It should get pinkish leaves where the variegation is. So we'll put this slightly towards the front to give a bit of interest. And this is a large variety of Cryptocoryne. I'm just going to pop it in front of the cave to give a bit of protection for the fish so that they feel safe when going in and out of the cave. It also fills in a nice gap beneath the wood there. After planting a few of these plants, I felt as if a little bit more interest was needed down the bottom here. I decided after planting to pop another bit of wood in, so that gives a little bit more interest with the roots coming towards the front of the tank, and it matches with the two bits of wood above. And so planting in between the roots and around the roots, we've got another few crypt varieties here. And just popping in a few little bits of lava rock and a bit of Lilaeopsis as well, so it looks a little bit more natural. And in addition, I just added a section of Sagittaria here from another tank. So using some of the crypt parvas from earlier, which is the nice small variety. Like I said, I want to try and carpet out this area on the bottom, but I wanted to give a bit of interest and height with some different leaf shapes so that it breaks up the carpet a bit. And I had another pretty variegated Anubias that I've just stuck on a bit of rock with super glue, just popping that towards the base of the wood as well. I'm using Hairgrass for the carpeting plant. So basically taking little clumps of these and popping the little plugs in with a pair of tweezers. If you don't do it with tweezers and you do it with your fingers, it will work just as well, but some of the bits of plant do actually float up more, so I find using tweezers for these is a little bit more easier. Just filling out all the gaps there. So I wanted to avoid the blunt top to this, so I popped on a small Anubias at the top and on the side of the bit of wood, again just to give it a little bit more interesting. And then time for filling. This one took a long time to fill, and we don't have a bull clip or anything to hold the hose on, so husband and I took it in turns to just hold the hose in place. You'll see me fiddling around with a few bits and pieces in the water. When the water goes in, it's a little bit easier to see how the plants sit, so it's quite nice to just play about with them a bit to see how they're going to look when the water is finished. So we're using some tap water conditioner. This is water from the outside tap. Our water's quite soft where we are, so it's not too bad, but there will still be some heavy metals and that will help. We're also putting some quick start beneficial bacteria in this. While I have used some old substrate in this and we have got the NutriBase, this will help kickstart it with some beneficial bacteria, which will help break down the nitrogen cycle. And we'll also use some liquid fertiliser. We've got a lot of epiphytes in here with the Bucepalandra and the Anubias, so this will help give them a bit of a kick start while the nutrient cycle's actually starting. On top of that, we're popping in some crystal clear. Now this is good for tanks that have got fine filter floss, and effectively the liquid binds together all the small particulates and then takes them out through the filter and they get trapped in the fine filter floss. So this is the finished tank. So you can see we've got a lot of plants in here. I wanted to make sure it was a relatively low maintenance tank again, so by heavily planting it, it means that that should deal with any of the waste from the fish really well. We've got the lovely cave section, which has got the hole for the light through. This Anubias at the back, I'm not sure whether it will survive because it did get covered in algae in the last tank that it was in, but we'll put it in a nice light spot there and see if it recovers. I wanted a kind of jungle feel to this tank, a little bit like if you were to go to the likes of Vietnam or South America, where you have the kind of big sinkholes into the caves in the ground. And I think I've succeeded. It'll be a lot better when the plants grow in, but I think this is a really good start. Now put in some fish. So this is a mixture of fish from our existing tank, which previous viewers might have known as the canyon tank. So we've just bought some new fish to top up the schools because this is a much bigger tank than the last. The last was about 40 litres and this is about 168 litres. So the schools we've got in are Ember tetras, which I've popped in there. And the next set of fish we're popping in are some copper Harlequin rasbora. So again, we had a few of these from the old tank, so this will be to top up the numbers. Forgot to mention that this is about a couple of weeks after the build, so you can see that the plants have grown in nicely. We've got the nice pink tops of the Hygrophila, and that has given the tank a chance to settle in and begin the cycle. So the next group of fish we've got are Chilli rasbora. These are quite small. We don't seem to have a problem with them being bothered by any of the other fish, so they're quite nice to fill out the top water of the tank. They tend to prefer to stay up there, whereas the other fish are a lot more mid-water. All of these fish have been acclimatised in their bags so that they can come up to the temperature. The temperature of this water is about 27, so it is tropical, so they need time from the travelling. And this last bag of fish are 5-banded barbs. They are relations to the tiger barbs, but they're not as aggressive. They can have trouble sometimes moving environments, so we've got to keep an eye on them over the next few weeks. But again, despite being a slightly bigger fish, they don't seem to bother the other fish too much, so they've worked quite well in this little community setup. So now, thank you for watching. I'm going to take a little bit of video of the fish in the tank. There'll be more updates in the future where I should be able to get you some better videos of the fish. But until then, I'll just leave you with this last bit of video. Thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.